Now, Google has suffered a major legal blow.
Google is shutting down Google Plus after the tech giant exposed the data.
Google is shutting down its social network,
announcing today that they are shutting down the game streaming service.
Google is the biggest name in internet search, and given its impact on other companies, arguably the most influential in the world.
Google, a global corporation and technology giant well known all over the world. One of the 5 big tech companies, alongside Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta, and 4th place by market cap as of mid-January 2025 worldwide. Google's most successful products and services range from search engines to email, cloud computing, and maps. At the same time, Google has a history of launching, changing, and shutting down various products over the last 20 years. They have had so many failed products that there is a separate website that tracks projects closed by Google, and we are talking about hundreds of them, with messaging apps being their biggest failure. Despite releasing numerous apps, Google has not been able to establish a messaging app that reaches the same level of popularity as its competitors. How did this happen? We will take a look at what Google has been doing all these years, where they are now, and what we can expect from them in the future. Let's kick off with the very first messaging service that was launched in 2005, Google Talk. Since its launch, Google has emphasized the importance of people using the company's services to communicate with one another. Google Talk was supposed to compete with other messengers of the time: ICQ, AOL Instant Messenger, Yahoo Messenger, and Windows Live Messenger. In 2009, Google introduced Wave as an alternative to email. Wave was the first product of the company in which all communication took place in real time. You could see how the interlocutor typed each letter. It was also possible to create threads in the service and respond to comments from other users. In August 2010, Google revealed that Wave would no longer be developed as a standalone product due to a lack of interest and was closed in 2012. A social network named Google Buzz, which basically replaced Google Wave, launched in 2010 as a sidebar in Gmail. Buzz was an aggregator that collected all the posts from Twitter, Picasa, Flickr, and others. So even if none of your friends used Buzz, you could still see their posts through the service. The social network itself created the user's feed and, automatically without permission, subscribed the user to all contacts from Google Talk and Gmail. And that was the biggest mistake. Google turned email into a social network without the consent of users, and they didn't like it. So shortly after, the service was closed in 2011. The same story happens with another service called Disco, an SMS-based group chat app. It was built within Google by a Slide Team, which was a social gaming company bought for $182 million. This product has not turned out to be as successful as it was hoped, and was shut down after the start of the Google Plus era in 2011, the social network and Facebook rival from Google. As part of Google Plus, 2 communication services were launched: Google Plus Huddle for text and Google Plus Hangouts for video. Shortly, Google Plus Huddle was renamed Google Plus Messenger. At the same moment, Google Talk was still functioning and doing quite well, but there was a major problem with it. Talk was based on an open-source protocol called XMPP, which Google decided to drop and instead use its own proprietary platform, so the development slowed down in favor of 2 new apps. In 2013, Google announced that Hangouts would turn from a video app into a full-blown messaging service. As a result, Google Plus Hangouts was spun off into a separate app and heavily redesigned. Google also moved all users from Talk to Hangouts, which allowed it to significantly expand its customer base. Google Plus Messenger's fate was less bright, and it always felt like a side project. So after 2 years of minimal improvements, the service was shut down in August 2013. With Talk still functioning and the new Hangouts app, there was no need for this app anyway. Google Spaces was introduced in May 2016, a mobile app for group discussions and messaging. The app was intended to compete with Slack as a content-sharing platform, where users can create a room, invite their friends for discussion, and share videos, images, text, and other media. However, it was soon closed in 2017. In general, it was a rather useless invention. Soon after Spaces, Google started its cycle again, announcing both Allo, a new texting app, and Duo, a new video app. Both are independent from Hangouts, making things complicated again. A brief summary of why this could happen. Google had recently failed to buy WhatsApp 2 years before. Facebook acquired it for $22 billion. So they made a complete clone of WhatsApp, creating Google Allo. It used SMS-based phone number identification rather than a Google account, and was limited to a single device at a time. Ironically, Duo, being just a simple video calling app, became more successful than Allo because WhatsApp did not yet have video calls in 2016. 6 months after the release of Allo and Duo, Google decided to make even more of a mess and announced plans to release a new pair of video and chat apps for the corporate segment, Hangouts Chat and Hangouts Meet. These were completely new applications not connected in any way with the previous ones. Google Talk was finally shut down in June 2017. Technically, the end of Talk was already in 2013 with the release of Hangouts. As was mentioned previously, Google moved all users from Talk to Hangouts. Google's first and maybe one of the most successful instant messaging services also served as a blueprint for future developments. Then we also had YouTube Messages. Started in 2017 and lasted only for 2 years, closing in 2019. It is still unclear why this project was closed. TechCrunch brought up the theory that children used this feature to bypass parental controls. There was no video verification and minors could watch unwanted videos via chat. YouTube is frequently used as a babysitter, so it's unblocked for kids, and the surprise addition of a messaging app gets to slip through the filter. Next in line for the shutdown was Google Allo. With low download numbers from the beginning, it was obvious that the WhatsApp clone app never stood a chance. Allo was even criticized before it came out as a not making much sense app. So Allo never really got the footing that the company was looking for, and subsequently was added as another casualty to Google's messaging graveyard. It was shut down in March 2019. In 2020, the start of the pandemic caused a rise in the popularity of video calling services. But Google was not quite ready for this and could not offer anything worthy to the ordinary end user. Meanwhile, confusion with the names Hangouts Meet, Hangouts Chat, and Original Hangouts remained. And only in April 2020 did the rebranding take place. Hangouts Meet became Google Meet, and Hangouts Chat became Google Chat. Initially, both apps were released as corporate, but a year later, after renaming, they were updated, redesigned, and made public and free. It became very strange that Duo and Hangouts lived in 2022 with brand new Chat and Meet. The original Hangouts app has been on a long and winding journey for nearly 9 years. Google's frequently chaotic and messy messaging strategy also meant that Hangouts was constantly competing with almost a half dozen other chat and video apps that Google insisted on releasing over the years. The service was introduced in 2013 as a standalone upgrade to Google Talk. Finally, Hangouts was phased out in favor of Google Chat and was shut down at the end of 2022. The same story appeared with Duo. The long-awaited merger between Google Duo and Google Meet has finally happened. Google stated in its blog post that the goal is to create a single video communication service. And finally, we have to mention Google Messages, formerly known as Android Messages. It is Google's official universal messaging platform for the Android ecosystem. The original code for Android SMS messaging was released in 2009 and integrated into the operating system. In 2014, it was released as a standalone application, independent of Android. Originally, it was limited to SMS-MMS interaction and lacked many of the features of popular competitors. Over time, Google added more features and in 2019, revolutionized messaging by integrating Rich Communication Services, RCS. RCS messaging is a significant upgrade from traditional SMS, allowing media sharing, better group chats, and improved security. Since 2023, RCS has been enabled by default on compatible Android devices, similar to how iMessage works on Apple devices. Furthermore, Apple finally introduced RCS support in their latest iOS 18 update in September 2024, which is a huge win for Google. Now, messaging between iPhones and Android phones has just become a lot more seamless. However, messages from Android users will still appear in green bubbles. To summarize, today we can observe the following situation: Gmail for sending emails, Google Chat for messaging, Google Meet for video calls, and Google Messages as an SMS or RCS service on Android devices. It took a long road to get here, and the main question is now, are we done yet? Google continues to fall into the same trend, which has been repeated over the years. They will develop new services and integrate them into their existing products, then try to start from a blank list, launch new services that will eventually replace the existing ones, and repeat the cycle. Within that mess of product names are two major issues: Google's clear desire to launch new apps and its inability to organize them under a single roof. Competitors like WhatsApp show how the opposite method could work: a messaging service linked to a user's phone number that allows for text, video, and voice all in one app. Or there's Apple's iPhone strategy, which connects email addresses and phone numbers with two services: iMessage for text and FaceTime for audio and video. Google's commitment to innovation is reflected in its willingness to discontinue products before their expected lifespan. According to the website Killed by Google, Google has ended a total of 296 products by the end of January 2025. These include 60 apps, 211 services, and 25 pieces of hardware. The number of products terminated by Google that can be considered failures varies depending on who you ask, as many of them were transformed into something different. Given that many of these product discontinuations resulted in something better, you may consider many of them a success. After all, Alphabet, Google's parent company, remains in the top 3 most successful tech corporations. Today we have Google Chat as a part of Google Workspace, with over 100 million active users per month. It is more viewed as a Slack competitor and is often used in the corporate space. Google Messages is mostly rivaled with iMessage, and recently it was announced they had reached 1 billion RCS users by the end of 2023, and with Apple's adoption of RCS on iOS 18, it will unlock access to 2.5 billion users. Those numbers are solid, even though it is quite hard to estimate how many users are chatting there daily. On the graph, you can see the total number of SMS and MMS messages sent in the US and Germany from 2005 to 2021. The US has had stable numbers throughout the last decade and quickly declining numbers in Germany. It is the major issue with SMS.RCS apps. Along with iMessage, they are mostly popular in the US region, while in the rest of the world, people use universal apps with texting, audio, and video chatting, apps that work on any phone in any region, except countries where they're not purposely blocked, such as WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Snapchat, Telegram, and other region-specific apps like WeChat. Today, WhatsApp has the highest number of active monthly users with 2 billion users, followed by WeChat with 1.34 billion and Facebook Messenger with 1.01 billion. But in terms of monthly downloads, Telegram leads with almost 50 million, and WhatsApp is close with just over 45 million. WhatsApp is the leading messaging app in 63 countries, including Brazil, France, Germany, India, Mexico, South Africa, and many others. Facebook Messenger is the most popular messaging app in 16 nations, including Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the Philippines, the US, and others. Telegram is the top messenger in 10 countries, most of which are located in the Eurasia region like Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Moldova, Armenia, and others. Viber hits the top in 4 countries: Belarus, Bulgaria, Greece, and Serbia. Line is the most popular messaging app in Japan and Thailand. WeChat is number 1 in China, KakaoTalk is top in South Korea, and Zalo is the market leader in Vietnam. In 2025, we can conclude that Google's messaging strategy has certainly slowed down after the last changes made back in 2022. After all, there is a new elephant in the room with such a trembling name: AI, a new race that Google cannot lose or be even late for the party. Google, with its app Gemini, is focused right now on competing with OpenAI ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, xAI Grok, Claude, Perplexity, and the recently released and made news headlines DeepSeek. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new about Google's complicated journey into a stable messaging app dream. Please like and subscribe, and see you in the next videos.